What is really going on, everybody? If you don't know, now you do know. You're officially tuned in to a very special edition of the HFWB podcast series. This is your host, Clifton Pope, and with me today, I have a very special woman who's been on her own journey as far as walking through life, finding her own faith. And as we all do, we all eventually walk this line of just finding our faith. Sometimes we get lost in the crazy world that we live in. And I feel like the person that I'm about to bring on is going to tell her own story. And I feel like we could all learn something from this story, including myself. She is basically a wonderful mom. She is a nurse, and she's an up and coming author. She has her own book out. It just came out a couple of weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken correctly, called Dear Mommy. I love the title, and I'm about to bring on the special author and the special person here, Miss JOYCE Ramirez. Welcome to the HFWB podcast series.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course, Joyce. Thank you for taking time out of this wonderful Labor Day weekend that's been off and off with rain and stuff just to come and hang out on the podcast series. So, Joyce, we're just going to dive on into this. For everyone listening to the HFWB podcast series and is wondering, who is JOYCE Ramirez? Give them a little bit of your background story.
Okay. Well, I'm first and foremost a mom. I have 3 kids. I have one child that was actually born with septo-optic dysplasia. So she's kind of categorized as that special needs child. Because she was ill when she was born, I was 21. I felt kind of dumb. I wanted to know what was going on, what the big words were that the doctors were saying. So I went to nursing school. So I became a nurse because of my daughter. And so really, she ultimately, from the beginning, changed my life completely. Believe it or not, I was a bookkeeper before I was a nurse. And so,
Oh, wow.
yeah, so it was a wild ride with her. And so that's what the book really does entail a lot, is my life raising her and all of the obstacles that we've gone through. One of the things that I like to tell people, especially in the special needs community, is this is the how not to book. This is how I messed up, learn from how the mistakes I made, and do better, because these kids don't come with instruction manuals, and each one of them is different. And so it's something finally out there for a parent like myself that can maybe look for some guidance. And like I said, for me, it's a what not to do book.
No. And it's funny how you mentioned that, Joyce, because sometimes a what not to do is sometimes necessary in order to show people what they need to do. Because there's somebody out there who may mess up and make the same mistake that you made along your journey, and they need a little bit of an instruction manual on how they can prevent themselves not to do it again. I mean,
Exactly.
I'm guilty of doing that probably every other day and wishing to myself, dang, I wish there was somebody who wrote a book or an instructional manual on how to do it better and how to prevent that from happening again. And it's crazy as far as your daughter having the special needs and was born like that and everything. Do you think along that journey it kind of helped build like a stronger bond and something out of that, and which led to you switching your profession to wanting to become a nurse to where you can understand that more?
Oh, absolutely. That was the only, I never had a desire to be a nurse up until that moment when we started going for test after test, and things were just looking really grim, and I couldn't understand. It was like they were speaking a foreign language. And so I needed to know more. I needed to learn more. I needed to understand before I was suscepting her to all of these different trials and things that she was going to go through. So yeah, she definitely, and we definitely do have a ridiculous bond. So she's here too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's always here.
Hello. For those who are basically listening to who aren't watching the video right now on YouTube, Joyce has literally just brought her daughter into the video shot for everyone who's tuning into the HFWB podcast series. Why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Sierra Ceballos. I am my mom's daughter, of course. I suffer from septal optic dysplasia and cerebral
Okay.
palsy. This ride that we have been on together is something that I could never forget. I love her with my entire being, and through God's will and through the will of my health, we've been able to come this far.
And we're going to keep on going, and we're going to keep on pushing. And I just want to say you've done well on your journey. Don't ever let anybody put you down as far as what you've been through, as far as just using this as an opportunity just to continue to rise up and accept the challenge. And most importantly, elevate and elevate by any means. That will be my words of wisdom to you. And you are truly a walking blessing, and you are truly a walking shining light, and you will make a great example for anyone who's listening to this, showing, hey, we all have obstacles. They can be overcome, and you're just proving it right then and there. So thank you for everything.
I think the key and the line that always ran through my head over and over from when she was born to that first diagnosis was, your daughter will never walk, talk, or see. That was told to me right from the get-go. And
It's
it was a journey because I think I spent a lot of time angry with God. Uh, the majority of my years, I was angry with God because of it. And I remember telling my mother what the doctors had said. And my mother, she kind of yelled at me. And she told me,
mm,
um, she was like, the doctors are not God. You don't just give up like that. You leave it in God's hands, and you'll see, you have to believe. And she's really my guiding light. And she carried us through, and she never gave up on Sierra in times when I struggled with all of the diagnoses and all of the things that we were going through, where it seemed like it was never going to end. Uh,
yeah.
she really stood there, and she carried me through the whole way. She's amazing. She's
And you want to know something that your daughter is also proving at this very moment, Joyce? She's basically proven the idea of epigenetics still being alive, and something that is not necessarily new, but at the same time, it's not that old either. Because for those who are listening right now who don't understand what I'm talking about as far as epigenetics, I actually talk about it a little bit more in my book, What's Wealth Without Work. But the idea is rising above your genes and showing that you could heal yourself from within, and never let any doctor or anybody say, oh, you're not going to be able to walk, talk, and do all this ever again. That's not true, because yes, you're just examining my body, but you're not living within my body every single day. So if anything, I have a step above you because I know my body better than anybody else.
right.
So you're pretty much showing that natural living is truly possible. And I just applaud the journey. I really do. And you got my salute for that, for sure. But overall, Joyce, I got to ask you this, because this is the main reason why I brought you on my podcast. What inspired you to write the book, Dear Mommy? Was it this whole entire journey that you've been on? Did you ever feel like you would have to have a story to tell, and you had to just get it out there? There was many people where they can relate to it. What kind of sparked all that?
Well, it's actually a funny thing. I was not religious. I was not. I was just not following a great path. Not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily a bad path, just a path with no faith. I was
Mm-hmm.
still very angry with God, and at one point in my life, I eventually found my way. Actually, by the help of my son, I found my way. He really pushed me to go
Mm.
to church, um, and through that, I became very open to the concept of being quiet and listening to God's word. Like, you can do all the praying and you can do all the talking, and when you have that conversation with God, you can keep talking, he's there, but if you don't stop and listen, you miss things. And so I felt a
Mm-hmm.
very deep calling to write a book. Um, it kept on over and over, and I kept saying, I don't have time for that. I do not have time for that. And
It always happens like that.
yeah, I kept on arguing back and forth, like I don't know what you expect of me.
Procrastination is a real weakness, I'm
And
telling you.
this probably went on for about 8 to 10 years until I finally said, let's do it. And when I look back at my book now, I really stop and think, I did not write these words. I don't even know how these words came about. This is strength from within. This is his words. This is him. The concept of the book, everything. Yes, I'm very creative. I've always been a writer. I've always wanted to be a writer, but I put everything on pause. Nor did I ever think I was capable of completing a task like this. I mean,
Yeah.
I have ADD. I can't stay focused to save my life. And then here I finally listened, and I put forth what he wanted me to do. And man, these words just came onto the page. They just danced onto the page and like I said, when I look back and I read it now, it's very strange to me because I'm like, how did I do this? How did those words jump on that page? So,
I could completely relate to that 100% within just writing my own book because it took I mean I did mine in like it took me like maybe 7 to 8 months to write my book, but even then it's just sometimes it's writer's block. You lose motivation, you lose inspiration. Sometimes you don't know what you feel like saying, and it's just putting everything together, and sometimes it may not sound right and just having to reconstruct everything. People who are listening to this podcast right now, they don't understand the struggles that just people who want to become an author within their own right and just write their own book and tell their own story. It's not done overnight. It's a process. And
right.
Joyce, you explained the process very well. And the one thing that I noticed about the two things that make you the most, it was inspired basically by your children, like your daughter who's right there next to you. She in a way inspired you to want to become a nurse, which you never thought would even be possible.
Never.
And then here your son is over here inspiring you to take a walk of faith, which leading you to write your book. So it's like, how important is it as far as your children, as far as just being that extra inspiration towards your overall journey?
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was asking Joyce, I'm sorry. Basically, how important have your children been for you along this whole entire journey that you've been going
They
through?
are my everything. I would not have amounted. I can't say I wouldn't have amounted to anything, but I certainly would not be the strong woman that I am right now. I certainly would not
Mm-hmm.
have the faith that I have right now. I spent so many years just wandering around without any thought processes of God or faith or, I never went to church. These kids didn't go to church for probably 15, 16 years. They didn't
Mm-hmm.
know. And then they begged me that they wanted to go to church and they didn't understand why I wasn't taking them. And so it really put a rift in what I was considering my norm. But everything I've ever done, when I look back at it, when I read the book, when I look at my life, everything was changed because of them. Everything positive that has ever evolved from me was because of them.
It's crazy because it's like at the end it's like I always like to say, it starts with God and it ends with God. Everything else that's going on is basically in between. And yes, we may have moments where we get lost. I mean, I could count how many times I took my own walk and of not having any faith and just living life and letting everything and anything get the best of me and everything. But at the end of the day, you got to come back to the source where it all starts. And something about when that turning point happens, it just flips the switch and you're like, okay, I'm back. Time to get things rolling yet again. And we're going to make a bigger impact than ever before. All through the grace of God. All glory be.
Absolutely. Amen.
That's what I like to personally say. Amen, amen. But overall, if you want people to get, what do you want people, Joyce, to get out of reading your book, Dear Mommy? Like, what is the overall personal message you want them to understand?
I think one of the big things in my book is even being I call them creasters, um, Christians that go to church on Christmas and Easter, or
Mm-hmm.
even those that have fallen into, negative forces in their life that they can make it and they can find their way back to Christ, and Christ is always forgiving, and he's always there, and he's always by your side no matter the trial, no matter how much you think he's not there at that moment, he is. Um, that that's a big theme in my book, is when I look at all of the negative aspects that had gone on, I blamed him and I was mad at him, like, why did this happen, why did that happen? And the
Mm-hmm.
truth be known, he was always there. And each time that a struggle occurs, the silver lining is just amazing. The end result is just never what I expected. It's kind of one of those things, like the unanswered prayers. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's not always what you want; it's what he wants, and it's for his good. So
It's all God's plan, and it's kind of like what you're alluding to in your book. And to add on one more thing, and I know we've all heard this before: I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Right? I
absolutely.
mean, that's pretty much what it all boils down to at the end of the day. And I want to keep this little theme that we have going as far as giving people words of advice. And for those who were lost in their faith, kind of like how you were at one point, and who are having trouble trying to find themselves, what are three key pieces of advice you will give them right at this moment, Joyce?
Um, one of my big things that I did was I joined. It's called the Journey to Damascus. So it's
Mm-hmm.
a 4-day retreat. Um, that was a huge game changer in my life. That was that moment of clarity, um, where I was lost and found. I felt it. I felt the change.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was a hard decision to make, because it's 4 days of your life. Like, oh my gosh, you have no phone, which people can't live like that anymore. And then I have
Yes.
I have Sierra, so I was scared to not have my phone. Um, but it was the most beautiful thing I could ever tell you.
And like when she went on her journey, it's hard to go those days without your mom. Like you're always stressed. You're like, what if something happens while she's not there? What if I can't do this on my own? And what if it was fruitless? Or what if, like it's just the anxiety is.
it's kind of like it's kind of like hoping for the best, being ready for anything, and expecting the worst to happen out of the situation. Kind of,
And then
definitely.
I think my second would be, find a church where you are, where you feel like you're praising, where you feel like you feel God, where you learn and you listen. I think one of my biggest things was finding the right church at the time. I went
Yeah.
to St. John the Baptist, and that was one of my things. Is like all the years that I ever went to church when I was younger, I was not paying attention ever, ever. I honestly, it's
I'm guilty of that too. Don't worry.
yeah, it was really, when I stop and think about it, it was really hilarious how much I was not paying attention. I was looking at other people's clothes and where can I buy that, or whose earrings I like, or it was never about Matt.
Just everything except the overall message.
Exactly. I mean, very rarely was I had all my prayers memorized, but that was it. And I didn't even know what the prayers meant. I was just going to say them. But when I finally found a congregation where the priest, man, his homily would get me every time. He would tell me what it looked like when at that time, or who was there, or what they would be sitting on, or what the season was, or uh, and he would put you literally there, and then he would just turn it all around and make you understand what it pertains to now. And just as he spoke, everything that he would say would stick with me to where I would walk out of there and me and my kids were having conversations over dinner about what the mask
Mm.
was. He was an amazing, but when I found that man, those were little pathways to me grasping and understanding. And then the third thing I would tell you is keep learning. Never stop learning. I think that's one
Mm.
of the biggest things that I've started doing a lot is reading. I read
Yes.
and read and read, and some of the books,
Yes.
my favorite authors are like Lisa Turkhurst. Oh gosh, I can't think right now. The Fourth Cup, that was an amazing book. But that constant learning. I actually read an entire book
Yeah.
about how to read how to do the rosary. I didn't even understand why I don't get it. I didn't understand why are they saying I don't understand that. So now when I don't understand something, I go and I read, and it
Mm.
really does make a difference. I do
It
Audible
does.
a lot because I have ADD.
No, it's great that you say that, Joyce, as far as the importance of reading, because I myself, I like to take reading as like mental gymnastics, right? Because we focus so much on the physical aspects of our body, but we don't pay that much attention to what's up here. And that needs a little bit of weightlifting and muscle building within
Right,
itself. And
right,
the best way to do that is by reading.
exactly.
And it's like, me personally, Joyce, I usually like to try to read within the first hour of every single day that I wake up, even if it's just a couple of pages. It's just that one little sentence that you read could spark some inspiration to where you
Absolutely.
want to pass it on as a message. And that's kind of what I usually like to do within my own motivational messages. I read, and if I notice something, and if I read it before I didn't catch it, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I know what this means. I got to pass this on to the next person. So I
Right,
love how you say never stop learning, because the moment you stop learning is the moment you stop growing. And I think that's something that people forget tremendously, and I really
right.
believe that. And at the same time, if we can learn from what the other two things Joyce said, go on a retreat and find a church that makes you feel like you're at home, and to where you can feel the Spirit of God, because that's all it takes for you to make that change to be a better person and just reach new levels you never thought you could reach. I mean, if I can do it, and if Joyce can do it, and if her family and her kids can do it, we can all do it. And I feel like that's the message I want to have on this episode of the HFWB podcast series, which leads to me asking you this, Joyce. I
Hmm.
have a list of questions that I usually ask people who come on the show. I'll cater it a little bit towards you, of course.
Okay.
My first question is simple. What's the first thing you do or think of every single day that you wake up every morning?
I thank God for waking me up. I thank God for allowing me to wake up one more day.
That's great, and that's something that I feel like everybody should do automatic. But you'd be surprised, because of the constant busyness that we're dealing with, to where it's like we hop out of our bed and we forget to do that. But I love that answer. It's a great answer, and that's something that I personally do myself as
I
well, Joyce.
I will admit I used to roll to my phone and check my Facebook. And so
I'm guilty of doing that too, to this very day.
yeah,
Sometimes, maybe once or twice a
exactly.
week, but I'm
It's a
trying to
hard
cut that
habit
out
to
too.
break. It's a very
It
hard habit
is.
to break. But I've started to mentally train myself that he comes first, even before Facebook. So I'm aging
That's great.
myself that it's Facebook that I go to, but yeah. You would say,
Hey, I respect the honesty, Joyce. I
yeah.
respect the honesty behind that. That's what the HFWB podcast series is all about. It's honesty here. Now, to bring you into my world and my brand, health, fitness, wealth, business, what is your personal definition of health and wealth in your own eyes?
Health and what?
Health and wealth
Wealth.
in your own eyes, yes.
Um, Health, I guess it's more of the, um, I take it a little bit different because I'm also a mental health nurse. So it's not just
Mm-hmm.
the physical, but it's the mental. I do, as far as health is concerned, I do try to get out and exercise, and I do try to eat right, and I cheat a lot. Um, but having that
Respect the
mental
honesty.
health is really important to me too.
Yes,
Um,
it is.
Staying focused and staying keeping your eye on the prize, like I said, waking up, praising God, waking up, knowing He's there with you, knowing you can turn to Him all the time. When people don't have that, and that's when they start circling the drain. Sometimes um, they don't have that strength that their father, their big father God, is right behind them, carrying them. So I do find that that's part of my health and wellness. Wealth is my family. I don't know. I fight to make ends meet, um, but it doesn't matter to me that where we live humbly. I'd rather live humbly every day, so long as I have my kids surrounding me and the fact that they love me enough that they still keep me even at 23 and 21 and 14.
I'm gonna
Go
start
figure.
crying.
If you imagine, even my 14-year-old still kind of likes me, and I take pride in that. That's my big wealth right there. Is that they like me, they keep me, they still want me to hang out with them. So I feel like I'm doing something right if they still want
Yes,
me.
yes. Even at 23,
Yep.
I love my mom. I'm sorry, but I love her. Like, she's my best friend.
Thank you.
There's nothing wrong with that, and I love that. That's just adorable. That just deserves a round of applause within itself. I mean, wow. Yes, I mean it's just something about just being with your family and creating those special moments to where you can look back on and talk about it the next gathering. It's just special magic within itself, and I myself cherish those moments too. Whenever I see family I visit from out of town or who come in town, etc., etc. But sticking to what you were talking about earlier, Joyce, as far as the reading and stuff, if you had three books that you could recommend to someone where you feel like they could change their lives, what would those three books be?
Lisa Turkhurst, Forgiving What You Can't Forget. That's a big one. Uh,
Okay.
Girl, Go Wash Your Face. I cannot remember the writer right offhand, but Girl, Go Wash Your Face. That
Oh
one
wow.
is a huge, man, kind of slap you in the face reality check. And then I
Mm.
believe it's Scott Hahn, The Fourth Cup. The Fourth Cup is really an amazing history lesson on the Bible, and but it's readable. Like you can actually follow it, and it has so many aha moments that make you realize that this is real. This is, that God is real,
Hmm.
that He's here and He had a message, and this is His message, and keep living His message. So
I
those
love
three
that.
books, yes, absolutely.
I'm gonna have to definitely keep those on my personal radar myself because I myself love to read and I'm all for reading different ideas and different topics based on what different authors bring within their writing and stuff. I will definitely be on the lookout for those. Whenever you're not doing everything that you're normally doing on a regular basis, Joyce, what would be some of your personal favorite hobbies?
I ride my bike often. That is one. It is a neat little
Okay.
way to get away, and those are when I have
Okay.
my quiet moments. I do have a lot of quiet moments with God whenever I'm out doing that. I know it's silly, but we play board games and hide and go seek in the dark to this
Nothing
day.
wrong with that at all.
Yeah, to this day, everybody kind of laughs at me. They're like, "When are you going to grow up?" And I'm like, "Probably never," but that's okay.
I mean, who?
You know what, Joyce? I'm glad you said that, Joyce, because sometimes growing up can be the issue within itself because sometimes we have to cater to the inner child that's still alive within us. Some people want to just throw that away like it never existed. Sometimes life needs that inner child to balance out with the grown up to where it's like this because life's a balance, right? Why not
Exactly.
balance it out like that?
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with that at all,
No,
Joyce. As a
yeah.
matter of fact, I love it actually. That's something.
I mean, we end up with broken toes and scabs and stuff, but it's okay. We live.
You know, some cuts and bruises, no big deal. No big deal at all. I
No.
love it. I love it.
The other thing I think we like the most is escape rooms. We love to do escape rooms, and we will literally go out of town to go
Okay.
to. Yeah, it's so much fun, and that's another brain exercise. I mean, you really wear yourself out in those things. It's fun.
I got you. I got you. My last question for you, Joyce, before we wrap everything up is an interesting one. If you had the opportunity to talk to yourself 10 years ago, what would you tell yourself? And at the same time, where do you see yourself in the next 10 years?
So 10 years ago, I probably would have told myself to write that darn book. I would have said, you can do it, you can find time, and you should
Oh,
listen.
man. Okay.
But I think without those 10 years of experience, the book probably wouldn't have been what it is now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we
This
needed
is
those
true.
10 years. Yeah. 10 years from now, I'm working on book 2.
Okay.
I am hoping to probably be a travel nurse. Once my little one graduates, I would love to be a travel nurse. And then if I ever honestly had the financial ability, we are volunteers. That's what we do. That's what we do on our spare time, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
One organization I want to bring to the forefront is Choice Living Community, because they are an
Mm,
amazing community of people who like to help make people like me who are special needs adults, try to make them more independent and try to teach them,
right.
yes, and try to teach them new abilities and
So
stuff
it's
like
kind of like an adult daycare for special needs, and actually Sierra volunteers
that.
there.
Yes.
And so
Mm,
man, it's just amazing to see her now, and her being out there and volunteering and helping with them. But we do anytime that we get a chance, we're out there feeding the homeless. I would love to be able to do so much more. I would love to be able to be a bigger help. I think that's why I changed some of my prospects into turning into a psych nurse, because I
mhm.
see the need, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's
And I want to take this moment to kind of give a special shout out to Dr. Jennifer Scott and
Yes.
Miss Bethany Baird at Choice Living Community for the wonderful work that they do. They're
absolutely.
wonderful people. They love just shining a light on those who have special needs and showing that they have hidden talents behind those
Oh
special
yes,
needs. And
absolutely.
that's the one thing I love the most about the work that's done at Choice Living Community. I've been there a couple times, and I'm like, yes, I love it. You just feel it right off the top, and
Yeah,
I know them very well because of that. And it's like I salute their work and what they're doing for the community, especially
absolutely.
for those in special need. It's
Yes.
well needed and well
Focusing
deserved.
on building their independence at the level that they are focusing. Man, I loved volunteering there. That was just such a um, beautiful experience for me, and I'm just so happy that Sierra gets to continue to volunteer there.
Yes.
Well, Joyce, we've pretty much covered mostly everything I wanted to cover. I just wanted to give you your opportunity to tell people where can they get in contact with you, and at the same time, where could they get a copy of Dear Mommy at?
Well, I am on Facebook at I believe it's Dear Mommy. uh, Joyce Ramirez. And as far as the book, you can get it on Amazon online, Kindle, Nook. You can also get it at Barnes and Noble online. Just
Okay.
looking up "Dear Mommy" Joyce Ramirez. Uh, it's 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 out there. I hope it helps the right people.
Yes.
And I definitely will get a copy myself very, very soon. You heard it here on the HFWB podcast series. That's my stamp of approval there. And if we could take anything as far as to close out this episode, get out there and try to make a difference and help someone who's in need by any means necessary, because you never know what that individual is going through, because we all have our own battles that we're fighting that are hidden to most. And at the same time, it kind of goes back to what I was talking about. We all have our own obstacles we need to overcome. So why not extend that hand, offer them some help, and kind of pull them out of their situation to where they can move on from it, and at the same time they can know that there's people there supporting them every step of the way, because I feel like that's what some people need, especially those who are going through mental health issues, like so on and so forth.
Yes.
But Joyce, I want to thank you once again for just taking time out of your Saturday just to hang out with yours truly on the HFWB podcast series. It's been
Thank you for
a fun conversation, and it's been an honor.
All right. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
We appreciate you.
Yeah.
I appreciate y'all for just hanging out with me. And for those who are listening to the HFWB podcast series, this is your host, Clifton Pope. I encourage y'all to stay healthy, wealthy, and blessed. And until next time, everybody, peace and love.
Thank you.